Welcome back to our 50th, count 'em, 50 episodes. Man, it's been, wow, I can't even believe that. It's been 50 episodes already. So many things have happened, and so many other things are going to happen, all of them good. But first, I want to give a shout out to Ashley for shouting us out on her Instagram page. It's not every day that you see someone shouting you out. So big shout out to Ashley for shouting us out on Instagram. Please follow us on at Shooting Bricks Podcast on Instagram so that, you can hop in and join all the fun. But as always, I'm Jared Castillo and I'm joined by.
I'm Daniel Huang. Before we get really deep here, I just wanted to first reaffirm our stance on behalf of this podcast in support of the African American community. We stand in support and are grateful for the verdict that was given out yesterday. Justice has hopefully been served, but this is not the end. This is only the beginning. Black Lives Matter, and joining us as well.
Absolutely. It feels so good to be back. I felt like The Rock there for a second because, he always comes into a new stadium, new city. He says, and finally, Relly Rail is back. But just echoing what Daniel just previously said, justice has been served, but it will be continuously getting served like the lunch lady serving you your food, your kids' food Monday through Friday at your local elementary through high school. You feel what I'm saying? Big shout out to all the April babies out there. Birthday just passed, April 17th. Big shout out to Candace Parker. Her birthday was yesterday. I love you, Candace. Let's get you on the episode. But it's Big 5-0. It's your boy, Relly Rail, Gerrel Sales. And of course, we have
Yo, what up? This is Skyler Treple. Great to have G back, and absolutely rest in peace, George Floyd. Grateful for the verdict yesterday, but it is just the beginning of the work. And yesterday was a great example of accountability and some justice. Justice would be George Floyd still being here today. And let's just keep doing the work. Let's keep supporting each other. Let's keep loving each other. Black Lives Matter forever and always. And it is episode 50. Let's go. Let's do it. This is big. Happy to be here, and we got a little special announcement coming in a second.
Yeah, absolutely, Skyler. Thanks for bringing that up. Great segue. And speaking of segues, you did mention episode 50. We're throwing everyone here for a little bit of a curveball because this episode, Skyler is going to be hosting, and the rest of us, we're going to be the co-hosts. So, Skyler, how are you feeling?
Good, man. Excited to be doing this. Exciting to, be a part of the podcast and join up with you guys. Obviously, later on in January. So maybe that was, oh man, episode 30, something like that. Who knows?
Yeah.
But anyways, it's been a real joy. Lots of fun. Excited to be doing this. Exciting to, change up the format. Get to interview you guys. We always share our stuff. Everybody knows, the different perspectives that we bring and whatnot. So today it's time to actually share some stuff about the podcast, who we are. Y'all will see in the video. I wore a suit jacket with a t-shirt and my chain for it. So should be a real fun time. So let's get into it, guys. What inspired you guys to want to create and be a part of this podcast? And what do you feel makes Shooting Bricks different?
So I think just going off of the first bit, what inspired me to create this podcast? Well, back in 2017, I was listening to the No Dunks guys, formerly the Starters, and I love their podcast. I love the things that they did on NBA TV, the stuff they did on YouTube, and I just figured, you know what? They're having such a blast just talking about basketball. I can probably do something like that. And so since 2017, I've been thinking about ways to cultivate that, that thought into reality. And obviously, because it's 2017, I was still in college at the time. I didn't really know what I wanted to do or how I was going to go about this. So I put it on the back burner. I had a few names, I had a few ideas of what to call it and how I would approach it, but I just never really had the time. That being said, when I got to USC, shout out USC, they something kind of like, I don't know what the term is, but it just kind of happened. I signed up for one of USC Annenberg's kind of podcasts, and they were like, "Hey, we need someone to host a professional sports podcast, the very first one on our network." And I was like, "Shoot, I'll do it." And so I was like, "I have no idea how to do any of this, but I'll just learn on the fly. I'll learn how to edit. I'll learn how to do notes. I'll learn how to do everything by myself." And it was an arduous process, but It was extremely fun. I enjoyed it so much, and that's where I met Daniel.
Yeah, I mean it's kind of a interesting story. So it was well, okay, some background. So for a while I wanted to when I was at USC, I would, I was experimenting for a long time with broadcast journalism, and something, podcasting was a format that I was aware of the time, but like, it was an interesting point to me, but it was something like I just never I kind of wanted to do it um out of curiosity, and it just everything kind of happened very randomly. Personally, looking back, I didn't know what the fuck I was doing, so people were just offering me shit, and kudos to an old colleague, Sarah Coe. Thank you. She offered me the place on the Pro Sports Pod, and I just said fuck it, fine, I'll join. Like, what, it can't really hurt. So I mean, that's when I met Jarrod. Then we met our old colleague Taj Mayfield, and then we kind of hit it off. The podcast was, it was a new format, but as time went on, it became my format of choice. I think it just fit me so well because, admittedly, I like to talk so much, and sometimes I'm not really ready to shut up. So it was all sailing from there. The Triple Team podcast lasted for a good school year,
21
and
episodes.
well, huh?
21 episodes.
21 episodes. It was for a first podcast, it was a fantastic start. And then, and then after that, when the school year ended, it was all over. So, and then, I kind of missed it. And then Jarrod comes to me one day, and he offers me the Shooting Bricks podcast, but not just any, like, podcast. He offers me, a place on a podcast with my old school buddy Gerrel, who I went to middle school with. And I'm like, hell yeah. So like, I have nothing to lose here. It will be it will be a fun thing to work on the side. So you know what? Yeah, I accepted it, and that's where we are today. And it's been a good ride so far. I could not believe that we got to 50, but we are. I got, that's how I ended up here. That's where I got.
Pretty dope, inspiring backstories here. And as I was listening to both of you guys talk about the early stages of this podcast before it transformed into the Shooting Bricks podcast, I recall in 2019 listening to the podcast. Jarrod would send me the links, and I'll be on my way to a dope basketball league at Cal State Long Beach, my alma mater. Shout out to the beach, but yeah, and I was like, yeah, this is actually interesting, like, going on. You guys have a unique dynamic. Things seem well. Then we get into a pandemic where a lot of our creativity started to occur. And Jarrod and I, we're really close. We talk a lot. And he was like, man, I'm thinking about creating this podcast. At the time, I was doing Entertainment's Paradise. I would occasionally do a Lakers video here or there. And he knows I know sports. I coached, I played, yada, yada, this and that. He was like, hey man, so you willing to be a part of this? I was like, absolutely. Talking sports. Initially, the Shooting Bricks podcast was geared towards sports in general and video games. So when we were in the process of coming up with names, I was throwing out names like initially was like Shooting Bricks, chopping sticks, or hitting sticks, something like that, to kind of have a play on words.
That's one of the names.
Oh yeah, that was one of the names. But I remember that combination of gaming and sports was kind of the idea I was at least going with. And of course, Daniel with the point four. Shout out to P Fish. Let's get you on a podcast, big fella out there. But yeah, and then we was like, wait a minute, Shooting Bricks. That's the ultimate name for this podcast, because think about it. I know that Skyler's going to have this question down the line when it comes to like the importance of podcasting and whatnot, but we live podcasts. We live a podcast. Think about going to the gym and just shooting some shots with the homies before you play a pickup game. And that's ultimately what we wanted to bring to the world, what's needed to be brought to the world. Us having enjoyment in speaking and talking about sports with our passion and connecting it to other things. So I think that aspect, as well as the community aspect between us as a group, kind of inspired us, at least inspired me to want to continue to venture into this world, because I'm no journalist. I'm I'm an amateur at that, but it, this is something that's awesome, and I feel like I've grown within it. Not only just as a person and being able to articulate myself on the mic, but also as a content creator with the Shooter Mix podcast, as well as Entertainment's Paradise. Shout out to Entertainment's Paradise.
Right. And I think ultimately, to answer your Skylar's second point, what do I feel makes this podcast different? It's because we all know each other. Like you just heard, there are very different ways of us of how we connected, and somehow we're still connected through that connection, right? Like I met
Agreed.
Daniel through USC. Daniel knows Gerrel from way back in the day, and I know Gerrel from undergrad. So it's like that weird triangle effect. It just we're all connected in some way we didn't know how, and by harnessing what we know of each other and how we can bring out the best out of each other, that's just what makes it different. And also, you guys can attest to this, the different styles and the different opinions we all have. I mean, yeah, we sometimes say outlandish things, but someone out there is going to agree with us. And if they don't agree with us, there's four of us that they can talk to, or at least latch onto. So I think that's what ultimately makes us different. Like, yeah, you know, I say XYZ, Dan says ABC, and Jarrell says the next three alphabet letters, whatever. But at the same time, it allows them to figure out who they want to latch onto this week and then find someone else next week, because people are different. People have different opinions, and obviously things change over time. So I think that's what I feel at least makes our podcast different. I mean, if you guys have anything else to add.
I just wanted to add, when we were doing the Triple Team podcast, I mean, I wasn't aware that Jarrod was good friends with Gerrel, and I'm gonna be honest. I was one like I like it's kind of weird, but to admit, but I wonder what the hell happened to you, Jarrell. Uh, and it's like it was like I wonder where you landed in life. So it's a coincidence that we landed back together, and I'm forever grateful for that. But props to what Jarrod said. What makes us so different is that we're so familiar with each other, and for the most part, like we're really cool on the personal level.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that's really funny because I think on the back end, Jarrod wasn't aware. I mean, I honestly I think we all kind of knew each other before this happened, because I feel like in undergrad initially you were at the beach, Daniel, and I kind of introduced you to Jarrod a little bit. Now that I think about it, in our poli sci class, Jarrod.
Was it
I think I
poli-sci?
remember.
Yes, it was poli
I
sci,
think I
because
remember.
that's how we met. Because I sat by you, we both looked at each other's shoes, like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
And Daniel after class, hey, Gerrel, Lakers, yada yada. I was like, hey, this the homie Daniel, this homie Jarrod. So,
Really
yeah.
quickly, man. I think one of the other things that we connected on was the fact that we watched Netflix every single class, because we're like all the way in the back. And so the dude was like talking about whatever, and like, all right, cool, yeah. Oh, what's on Netflix? All right, cool, yeah. And then we just kind of like shared Rex that way. So
True.
crazy.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, that's a superhero origin story if I've ever heard one. That's really great stuff. Fun to hear it, and on my end, just appreciate the experience of getting to be a part of it. Obviously, through Zoom, we haven't even gotten the chance to meet, so it's just
Yeah.
been chatting and getting to know each other, and watching you guys grow and getting to be a part of that on my end. I came on as a guest and just enjoyed the vibe. I've always enjoyed chatting ball. And it's a good vibe recording this podcast for sure, and it's good
Oh, yeah,
times,
absolutely.
and no
Absolutely.
doubt. And so, no, definitely, and it's great that we all have our different opinions, and you can always find somebody to latch onto. And speaking of latching onto, we all latched on to basketball at some point in our lives.
Right.
And so what I want to know with you guys is, what in the first place inspired you guys to get into basketball?
You guys want to take that one first? Because it's going to take me a
Uh,
while.
I can get started. So, uh, to answer your question the best I can, Skylar, my love of basketball began on a, um, let's say, spring night in the year 2004. The Lakers went 56
like
and
it.
26 that season. It was Shaq and Kobe's last year. I believe it was me and my brother, we were brushing our teeth, ready to go to bed. And the first time I ever laid my eyes on a basketball game was on KCAL 9. The Lakers were on the road against Portland. I think it was a close affair, and the Lakers won that one. It would be the last time they would win in Portland for a number of years. I just remember Shaq's imposing body and these like I was just wondering like what are these guys in purple and golden were doing. Soon that it then I it became watching basketball eventually became a habit, and eventually by the year third grade came 2006, I was a full-blown basketball fan, and that's how I practically got started watching basketball. It was my love of basketball fully took off in middle school. Well, it took off in fifth grade. That was like the 2008 Kobe Pau Gasol. That was the first time I began studying the game in detail. And then middle school, I met Gerrel, and that's where that's where my fandom at least really exploded. That's when I became knowledgeable about the game. That's when I discovered my passion for basketball for the first time. And other than that, it was the first time that I ever saw my sports team win a championship. Back in 2009, Gerrel, you kind of remember this. You called me when the Lakers won game 5 of the 2009 NBA Finals. So yeah, it's long story short, that's kind of how I got involved in the game of basketball, and that's what kind of inspired me to watch it. It was a basically effect of habit, and then like I found a community of people, of kids at the time that loved it, and then we kind of shared it. It was also a good mix of Kobe, and in all honesty, it was a plethora of things. It was basketball was just a byproduct of my childhood.
Awesome. You want to go, Jared, or you want me to go?
Yeah, I could go. Because mine is a little bit more nebulous at that. I don't necessarily know what inspired me to get into basketball because for the longest time, it's always been a part of my life. Growing up in Saudi Arabia, we didn't get a lot of news. We didn't get a lot of sports. The only things that we did get kind of through the wire was basketball. And I can't remember the year. I can't recall. But I don't know if it was highlights or an actual game, but the first thing I've ever seen of anything basketball related was the old Warriors jersey. And to me, it was like, that's super sick. Like, I've never seen anything like that. I was like 2 or 3 at the time. And I had no idea what these dudes were going, these massive men running across a parquet floor at 20 miles an hour, dunking on people. Like, I didn't know any of that. I was like, this is so interesting. I've never seen this. And so as that started to simmer in the back of my head, I went through my life, and then when I went to the Philippines, like early in the 2000s, my older cousin had a PlayStation 1, and he had like NBA Live or something like that, one of those games. And I remember my brother and I would play. I would always pick the Warriors. He'd pick the Spurs, and he would just destroy me. But I'm like, I'm having fun playing as the Warriors. And the early 2000s, the Warriors were trash. And so as I got older, my fandom for the Warriors just started to grow and grow and grow. 2007 was an all-time high. 2008 was an extremely disappointing year. Won 48 games, didn't make the playoffs because I think the playoffs that year in 2008 was what, like 50 wins got you the 8th seed, something like that, something crazy. And then 2009 happens, nothing cool. 2009, 2010 happens, Stephen Curry's there, and I'm like, ooh. And initially, I didn't know a lot about Stephen Curry, but one of my classmates at the time, her name is Celine. She was a Spurs fan, and she had a crush on Stephen Curry. And I was like, Stephen Curry, who's this guy? And she's like, oh, he's on the Warriors. You should check him out. And I'm like, okay. So I did a little bit of digging. The internet back then was crap, so I had to, do whatever I can through Wikipedia and Google, making sure I didn't go into any weird sites or whatever. But like, I looked up Stephen Curry and I just fell in love with this dude. Like, he put up big numbers. He impressed LeBron James when he was at Davidson. This dude was just something else. And then 2012, his injury riddled season, Monta Ellis getting traded, I was just so livid. And I think that's when the thing that was simmering in the back of my head about basketball became a true passion, because I was once I saw Monta Ellis get traded, in a weird way, that was kind of fortuitous for me because that just awakened my true love for basketball and all the intricacies of basketball, and why I guess my favorite player at the time, at least favorite player to watch at the time, got traded. And so I think that's what kind of helped me evolve into, the basketball person that I am now. I don't know if that answers your question, Skyler, but at least that's what inspired me to
Absolutely.
get into basketball.
Absolutely. No, great answers all around. Gee, I'm looking forward to hearing what you have to say next, man.
Yeah, this is very amazing. Just how the gift of basketball kind of how it chooses you. Like you don't choose it; it chooses you. And I think what I found was interesting is kind of the same thing as far as the video game goes. I was very in tune with sports initially. I'm not gonna lie. I thought I wanted to be a baseball player, but that's a story for another podcast episode, another time. But anyways, I was always in tune with video games and NBA Live,
Yeah.
not just NBA Live, but even the other games, just the culture of basketball was thriving within uh, video games in the early 2000s. We had NBA Live, we had NBA Ballers, we had NBA Street. There were so many different video games, but I think the NBA Live, the announcers, the slam dunk contest, the players like AI, Vince Carter, Kobe Bryant, it was so many amazing players at the time, and it, like I said, the culture, the cars, the them being in NBA players being in TV shows, music videos. I think the culture is what first like engulfed me into basketball, like enjoying it. And I think there was different segments of my life that different aspects of basketball really inspired me even more. So initially it was in the video game aspect. Then it became the NBA, the actual watching games. I think I consider myself a late bloomer. Like I always enjoyed basketball, but my passion really didn't come until seeing Kobe struggle in '05 and '06, but still leading trash players, not going to name drop. But anyways, and seeing them lose against the Celtics and seeing the rivalry go on within this basketball community, just understanding that because I had family members that played video games and they will always play with the Celtics. And I'll go to school and I'll kind of lack the understanding of this rivalry. But seeing them lose, I had my half brother is a Celtics fan. Um, um, and initially I was like, maybe I might be riding with the Celtics. And I get a lot of hate for this, but I was picking my team and I loved Kobe. I loved Kobe from that time of him three-peating, Froby, all of that. But I was debating between the Lakers and the Celtics at the time. But when the Celtics beat the Lakers in '08, I undoubtedly knew that the Lakers was my team. And it came to a point where I used to watch basketball games. I watched every game that season. I watched every Lakers game since then. I don't miss games. I tell you guys, I miss out on playing video games because I want to watch the Lakers. I got to at least watch a quarter. I got to at least watch the end. I got to at least see the highlights. So I watch dark days, good times. I've always watched the Lakers ever since that year. That will be the second segment. That third segment is actually playing the sport. I found an enjoyment of being out there on the court. To the point where I told myself that I wanted to be in the NBA. Unfortunately, that did not happen. There's a lot that goes into that, but I still enjoy playing. I still enjoy playing in adult leagues competitively. I still enjoy seeing that ball go through the net. I still enjoy the therapy you get from shooting the ball. I know that there's times where I'm super upset and I go out to the gym and I can't hit the shot, but that emotion that I have which helps me to cope with things. And I feel like all glory to God that I'm able to still be here today with the right mindset, not being able to play basketball. Fuck 2K because that's all I'm getting. You see the vein coming out here. But yeah, so like I said, initially video games, then it came to the actual watching these games on TV, learning the stats. Then it came to a point of me playing from middle school, actually elementary school, 4th and 5th grade, all the way through high school, even to this day. But then it switched to me getting a coaching lens, right? I became a coach, travel ball, rec leagues. And I feel like those 4 stages of my life, video games, actually watching the NBA, to actually playing, to coaching, I feel like all of those just gave me a different aspect of the game, a different love of the game, because I've experienced it in so many different realms. So it's all stemmed from a video game, but I think my inspiration towards basketball continues to grow, and it just continues to find different avenues to feed that passion.
Wow. Absolutely. One thing particularly that I like that you said, G, and thank you all for sharing such amazing stories and diverse stories. And this really should show one of the beauties of basketball is how it brings different people together. Like it really, really does. I mean, you just look at this, it's amazing. And so, G, you said basketball chooses you. I was watching Kung Fu Panda the other day, someone recommended, and there's a line in the movie and it says, "Your destiny often finds you when you're not looking for it." And I feel like something interesting with basketball is even if you try to move away from it, it always finds a way to find you again once you fell in love that first time. And so that's something I think that we all share. I know for me it was seeing Space Jam when I was 3 years old. I saw Space Jam in theaters, sunny day with my mom and grandma, and then Kobe Bryant was drafted the same year, and I wanted him to be my Michael Jordan that I grew up with since Jordan was on his way out. And so, anyways, that was really special. And I know that Kobe Bryant has definitely provided me my all-time favorite basketball moment. I'll get into, but first, I really want to hear for all of you guys. What is your favorite all-time NBA moment?
Oh, NBA. Oh, okay. Because I thought it was just like our all-time favorite basketball memory.
Welcome to
If
share that too.
Okay, I'll do the all-time favorite NBA memory first, or moment. Um, I guess it was in 2015, just winning that championship after what, 40 some odd years at that point.
Exactly
Yeah,
40.
yeah. It was 1975 with Rick Barry and all them. And then 2015, nobody expected us to win 65 or 67 games, excuse me. I didn't expect us to win 67 games, but the Warriors did because shout out Steve Kerr for unlocking that fantastic ball movement heavy motion offense that is the one offense that no one can guard. And that I don't think there's a particular moment, but just seeing everyone lift that trophy, even though I still argue that Stephen Curry should have won Finals MVP because Andre Iguodala held LeBron James to like 30 points on like 48, 40, and like 80% shooting or something like that, something crazy. So yeah, give it to Steph. It's fine. I even wrote a piece about this, but um, outside of the NBA, I have two favorite moments. So when I was in middle school, I was part of the basketball team, and we didn't win a lot of games. We won two. We had 9 games. We won two. We won 2-7. Math. But in one of the games, time was running down, and I was inbounded the ball. I was I was objectively the fastest kid on the team, so they gave me the ball to see if I can hit a bucket. And so what had happened was they gave me the ball, and I looked at the clock. It was like at point 0.5 ticks, and I let it go just past half court. The circle, just past that between the circle and 3-point line. I let it go. It goes in. We're all screaming, "Yeah, whatever, cool!" And I can't remember a time when I was that happy hitting a buzzer beater to seal the game because we were up by I think 5 or something, and they were just like, "Hey, just chuck it, see what happens." I'm like, "All right, cool." And then I did. It goes in. I'm like, "Oh, this is awesome! Oh my god!" And so that moment of joy, the pure adulation that I got, is rivaled by the fact that in college, and G, we were on the same college team in at Long Beach, right? The year we won the championship, I had back-to-back games when I scored 18 points on 6 of 12 shooting from three-point land. That's the hottest I've been, and that's the hottest I will ever be. And I wish I can go back to that time just because, again, adulation and the heat of the moment, when you're on, you're on. And so those are my technically three all-time favorite basketball moments. But
Beautiful.
I don't particularly have a favorite basketball moment, but three very significant events come to mind. For the first one, we go, yes, I'm taking you all back in time. It's the year 2006. My cousin Kim is taking me to my first ever NBA game ever. It was the Lakers and Clippers. The Clippers were, they were good that year. The Clippers were playoff bound. They were actually better. I think they believe they were better than the Lakers that season. But anyways, the Lakers and the Lakers eventually, even though they lost one night, one particular magical moment that has always stuck with me. It was I forgot I don't know when in the game it was, but I think it was around third quarter. Kobe steals the ball and makes a breakaway dunk, and the crowd just goes crazy. and it was a pretty, inconsequential moment, but the crowd was so crazy, and like I just it the loudness of the arena it was contagious at that point, and it just that memory never left me, and that was the game where I to this day I still have um a a toy number 8 ball that I've never gotten rid of. It's still with me since. The next moment I wanted to get down was the 81-point game. Looking back now, like 2006, for my relationship between me and basketball was a pretty magical year. So it was me and my family and I we were out for dinner that night, and then like my brother suddenly tells me like, hey, we gotta get to the TV once we got home. Kobe's making a record night. And then we just sat there, and for the next hour I was just in awe. Kobe, like we were just guessing like, hey, how many points is Kobe going to score? And my basketball knowledge was in its infancy at this point, but it was that night where when I heard the crowd chants Kobe, 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 that was the first time I realized just how good Kobe was, and that Kobe was literally like a god. And then obviously my final favorite moment was, the 2009 NBA championship. That was the first time I ever saw any of my sports teams go all the way. And the journey of, beginning of the season, coming off the bitter defeat the previous year in 6 games, being blown and defeated that hard in Beantown, just to go through the whole journey of, getting to 65 wins, and then getting into a surprise Game 7 against Houston I believe it was the second round, and then the whole journey of just getting there, and like like kind of being relieved that Cleveland didn't make the finals that year, and like it, like seeing Lamar Odom and his candy replica of the Larry O'Brien Trophy and the celebration. It was the jubilation behind of it, like it's like obviously never left me. And then obviously like though it was a beautiful conclusion. I just very still remember to this day the parade. Like it was just a beautiful day.
Amazing.
Hey, you brought so much memories back when that 09, 2010, like years. Lamar Odom was dating Khloe Kardashian. Anyways, I digress.
Wild times.
Wow.
These are amazing moments. There's so many moments that I can share. I'm gonna share about 7. I'm just playing. But I do want to go with one in particular. I think one of my favorite moments is an accumulation of moments. Like I didn't make my basketball team middle school, 6th, 7th, 8th grade. I trained hard. I think if I know what I know now as a coach, as going through the process, like if I was there to mentor myself at that age, I would be so much better. But I didn't make it. I didn't make it my 9th grade year, but then I made it my 10th grade year. My 10th grade year, I made it. I had to go play in a rec league in 9th grade and dominate in there for the coach at my high school to come see me and like, yeah, we got to get this kid on the team. And one of my favorite moments is that moment where I get the goosebumps, where I feel kind of nervous. I feel kind of scared, but I'm able to perform. There happened to be a fight at one of our games my sophomore year, a big fight with our freshman team. They went at it. It came to a point where everybody had to exit the gym unless you were a parent of one of those players for the game. And this team that we played against had like a 6'5", 6'6" guy. At the time in 10th grade, I was probably all 5'9", 5'10", maybe. And I gave this guy buckets. I gave him buckets. I had my career high, 18 points, 10 rebounds. We lost. It was we needed a game tying 3, and one of our players missed it. But I think that has to be one of my favorite moments as far as basketball goes. In addition to that, I'm not going to go too deep into it, but finding my passion for playing basketball. I believe my high school coaches, if they're listening to this, I can tell it to their faces. They ripped my passion away from playing basketball to the point where in my senior year, I chose to quit the team to just focus on my academics. Because I've had coaches talk down to me, tell me I'm not going to amount to anything when it comes to basketball, and not knowing that this is still a passion of mine, something that I enjoy. So finding that passion in other realms, coaching, playing as far as an adult, I think that has to be a great memory for me because I face adversity. I'm not Kobe Bryant, but that's my Kobe moment right there. I faced something that kind of took me out of it, and I was able to find my passion again and come back even stronger to the point where I'm dunking. I'm winning adult leagues with my homie Jarrod. I'm dropping 20 points at the Anaheim Rec League. Shout out to Cesario and Jingles. Also, shout out to, since I brought that up, I'm happy that they were able to find my friend Aaron Jingles, his sister, because she was missing. So just big shout out to that. That kind of just weighed on my mind. Basketball moments. Initially, I was going to roll with the Lakers winning in 09, but I'm going to actually roll with 2018. Everybody knows me as a basketball fan growing up. You love basketball, you love the Lakers, you love Kobe, but you've never been to a Lakers game. You've never been to a basketball game. And I was blessed. My dad's coworker had box seats to the Lakers game against the Denver Nuggets in 2018, first year with LeBron James. And I think I said this on a podcast before, but this I felt like I was 5 years old at Disneyland going to the Staples Center. I see this on TV every day. I hear Stu Lance and I always forget his name, McDonald,
Bill McDonald.
Bill McDonald talk. And I see the cameras. I see this on 2K. I see this. I'm here. I'm seeing the pictures. I'm out on the wall. You see, who's that? Is that Magic Johnson? He just walked to the bathroom. What? Oh my goodness. I was in a blissful moment. And not only to see the Lakers play, but that was also the night Kobe Bryant was in attendance. They were giving a celebration for Kobe. He was in attendance with Vanessa. In addition to that, Mayweather was there. It was a celebration. And I think that this has to be my favorite basketball moment because a part of me felt so ill and sick inside that I wasn't able to watch Kobe play live. But to still see him in the Staples Center was the best consolation prize I could possibly get because now I'm seeing two of the great players, LeBron James as well as Kobe Bryant, in the same arena. They hugged each other, all of that stuff in his suit. He had the bald hair and the beard. This was around the time when he was doing that short, right? He got that short where he got a Grammy for, Dear Basketball. So I think that's my greatest basketball moment as far as the NBA goes and the previous that I mentioned. But yeah, absolutely.
That's amazing. Those are some great moments all around, and really helps you sort of relive the joy of basketball as a sport and sort of as more than a sport, as really something that brings people together. I've shared on this podcast before. I've got the plaque behind me. Kobe Bryant's last game. I have no idea how I ended up there from Winnipeg, Manitoba, Canada. And really, aside from LeBron making the finals in 2007, that was special because I followed him since the beginning. And as you guys know, if you're a Kobe fan, you had to be, people said you were a LeBron hater, essentially. And so for me, that was always a moment where, no, like it's okay to appreciate the greatness of both. If there's anything we learned from Kobe passing away, it is to appreciate that greatness while it is around. And so, 2010, 2009, Kobe winning without Shaq, very, very special stuff. And also hitting a nice turnaround fadeaway jumper in my red league in my Kobe jersey, yelling Kobe on the driveway, hitting those shots, 21 with the guys. And again, there's just something about it. And I'm not sure basketball can ever leave you. And, it plays such a large role in so many areas, which really brings me to our final sort of podcast related question before we go over a little bit of basketball roundtable stuff here. So what do you guys feel that the larger role basketball and even this podcast can play in society?
I mean, very simply put, it brings people together because without basketball and without this podcast by extension, the four of us wouldn't be together in some form, right? And if basketball has the power to do that for four people, imagine how many other people it's impacted. 4 million, 40 million, 400 million. And so basketball is just, it's a lot larger than putting a ball in a hoop. You've seen it with the social justice stuff that they've done over the summer, over the past year, just having all those different facets together and bring all people from all different walks of life together. I think that's the power, that's the larger role basketball has. And conversely, this podcast, because like I mentioned, all four of us, we came together through basketball. And if, 5, 10 people come together and listen to this podcast, that's because of basketball. And it's just the overarching thing. It's basketball and this podcast. We're bringing people together. And at least that's what I feel.
I agreed with what a lot of Jarrod said. Basketball is one of the most creative games out there. Besides soccer, I think even then, I think basketball is probably, in my opinion, one of the most creative games that's ever been created. I think basketball, as a its role in society, is to provide a creative expression that could not be expressed anywhere. Because let's be honest, you don't find the same creativity in other sports like football and especially baseball and hockey. You just don't. I think basketball is that unique of a sport that like it provides a space for people to express who they truly are. And the other thing is just like, I want to be honest, like life can be a hard and cruel place, and basketball and this podcast simply provide an escape for the hardships of daily life and the boredom of it all. So I mean, if we can provide an hour break for that individual to just turn off life for one moment, then we did our job. So that's how I see things.
Big facts. Agree with what both of you guys have said. And just as I mentioned before, it's an outlet. Jarrod said it's community. We think about it. Anybody could pick up a ball. We've seen, I don't know, countless ugly shots. There's people just throwing bricks. Keep shooting with us, guys, but we appreciate it. But yeah, like I said, it's an outlet. It's a part of a community. So much fun within it. It's a beautiful sport. When it comes to society, there's so many things that it does. We see what it has done over this past year as far as bringing awareness to certain situations, letting people be seen. That's crazy to think that people aren't being seen, but through basketball, they're being seen. LeBron James, he's more than an athlete. Why are you categorizing me as one thing? And that's the problem with people in the society. They don't think of the intersectionalities of what people have, the multiple identities that we carry. You're a politician, but you consider yourself ethnicity or gender or your sexual orientation, whatever the case may be. We see people bring into the light a lot of situations that were put into the dark, and it's because of the sports platform of basketball that such things are being talked about a little bit more now. There's more podcasts on NBA topics because a lot of societal issues also affects these players that hold those identities. So it's a huge role on society. It's a generational change for any athlete, regardless of their ethnic background, because you can make a lot of money off of this, right? So basketball's role on society is a huge impact. This podcast on society is a huge impact as well. I'm not saying we're not going to compare impacts, but this is an escape to listen to us talk about sports. And hopefully you guys are subscribed and following the Instagram and social media pages, because we want to plug that in there, because we want to have those discussions with you. I don't care if you have a different opinion than I have, just keep it respectful and drop that bad boy in the comments. I'll talk to us. That's what we're here for. It's a roundtable discussion, much as what Skyler said earlier. We're just all on the court shooting bricks. That's what you do with random people sometimes. Can I shoot with you? Sometimes you have a little conversation. It's like a barbershop, but it's a basketball court. So that's what this podcast has on society. So come shoot some bricks with us.
I love it. I love it. No, those are really great answers all around, and really brings out, the multifaceted aspect of basketball, of people, of the fact that these basketball players aren't just basketball players, and that's for all of us, different courses, different paths we take. That, Kobe Bryant starts as a basketball player and goes and wins an Oscar. We see LeBron James and all the things he'll go on to do after basketball, and basketball is just such a vehicle through which to learn, and being a part of that, and hopefully having an impact and making people smile, and the way it brings people together. And that's a really, really cool thing for sure. And, before we get into more basketball here, happy to be a part of the journey, and 50 so far, many more coming up. and it's good stuff all around. Keep tuning into the pod, and hope you guys have so far enjoyed this interview podcast meta aspect of all of this to celebrate the 50th episode. Since we are doing things a little bit differently here, we're gonna take it on to more current-ish situations, comparing history. And let's start off now. Steve Kerr had a very interesting quote. Guys, as we know, the legend Stephen Curry has been ripping it up. 49 points on Monday, 10 plus threes multiple times, 4 of his last 7 games. And then he goes on a streak and breaks Kobe Bryant's streak of being the oldest player at 33 years old to score 30 points in 10 or more games. Steph has done it 11 times as of right now. Will he continue? We will have to see. But regardless, Steve Kerr had a great quote. This is Steph injecting himself into basketball history. And so Steve Kerr said, I've seen Kobe Bryant early in his career, had a stretch where he went nuts via basketballnews.com. And Steve Kerr continued. And obviously, Michael Jordan has had some stretches where he just scored like crazy. But obviously, nobody's ever shot the ball like this in the history of the game. And even by Steph's own lofty standards, this is above and beyond. How do all of you contextualize Steph Curry's current scoring frenzy and shooting frenzy as of late?
Well, it just further cements the idea he's the greatest shooter of all time. There's not much I can say about that. Steph Curry has literally, become, and it just, he has become this franchise. Steph Curry, in a way, not completely, he's become the institution. And I think, what the scoring frenzy means is like, the Warriors have to basically step it up because, I mean, like Steph needs help on that court. And hopefully with Clay back, I can see at least one more championship before Steph hangs up his sneakers.
I think the best way to contextualize everything that Steph Curry's doing is the fact that we just need to enjoy it. We've never seen anything like this, right? This is uncharted territory for everyone. And so I think the best thing we can do is just not compare him to Kobe, to Michael, to all that. Just accept what's happening because we will never see anything like this again. Sure, Trey Young might do this, but he can also not. We're seeing it in real time. So Trey is a ways away from doing this because he's 20, 21, 22. Curry's in his apparently twilight of his career. But let's just accept this for what it is. It's amazing. And let's just enjoy it while it's here because I'm of the group that thinks that he's going to be playing until he's 40. But realistically speaking, he may only have 2-3 good years left. So let's just enjoy it and let's not bring him down. He is the greatest shooter of all time, yes. But let's just accept it and enjoy it while it lasts.
Yeah, I agree with you, Jarrod. I think Steph is entering another stratosphere here.
That's the sphere.
So there you go, Steph's sphere. Oh, I didn't even pronounce that right, but we always come up with terms here. You love it, but yeah. Unfortunately, the greats are always going to get compared. But I totally agree. I totally agree with you what you're saying, Jarrod. We got to enjoy it. It's like taking a photo or having your phone out at an event instead of just embracing it. What I wanted to point out here is this is the first time that we see Steph Curry carrying his team. Think about it. When he was just entering his prime, they ended up getting KD the year after. You know what I'm saying? They won the championship, but Curry never really carried a team on his own. He always had Clay as his running bait, but running partner, whatever. But this is the first time. So you're showing how great he is. He's breaking records here. He's the greatest shooter of all time. This is crazy. This is wild. It's putting him up there. And if he can somehow get his team into the play-in tournament, this even solidifies more of how great he is as a player.
Wow. Absolutely. I think it's really interesting because exactly Kobe, Michael, Steph, they're all such different players. And it's just the reason I think that it's compared is because we've seen Kobe go off, we've seen Michael go off. And the thing is, you have to appreciate it all uniquely. Kobe going off for 40 points a month 4 separate times, Michael going off on his various scoring streaks throughout his career. But this 3-point stroke and the dribbles behind the back and all of that, again, it's you could say the same type of thing about Kobe and Michael and their unique moves, and that's exactly what it is. It's unique. And so just enjoy the ride and enjoy this performance by Steph Curry because it's special. You're never going to see it again. And this is Steph Unplugged. This is Steph Unleashed. This is the chef cooking up a storm right now. And it's a beautiful thing to watch. So that is great. We already mentioned the man, Michael Jordan. And I think a nice way to close off this podcast and our love of basketball and basketball greatness. It's so hard to believe thinking about the pandemic and sort of how early on The Last Dance came out in the pandemic. Oh my God, we don't have sports. What are we going to do? And how it just created this moment in society. And it exploded on social media earlier this week that basically it was the 1-year anniversary, 1 year since The Last Dance. We've all been quarantined, Zoom meetings, all that stuff going on. NBA is back, which is nice, but The Last Dance, I think, will forever have a mark on basketball, on society, and on recreating a legend's legacy and bringing it into the modern era. And it might be something we see again, but never like we did with this and the way it was done. It got Michael Jordan to be the most current player talked about again. And so what I want to know from you guys here is 2 questions related to this. What is your favorite memory from The Last Dance 1 year later? And is Michael Jordan still the greatest basketball player of all time?
So I'll go. And as you guys all know, I love old school hip hop and specifically 90s hip hop. And so the one thing that really stood out to me was the soundtrack, specifically when they're playing I'm Bad, when Michael Jordan was torching the Celtics for 63 points. That was insane. And also, Can I Kick It? When Kobe and Michael were in, I think, what was it, Madison Square Garden? Or I think it was that or the All-Star game, one of the two or both. And everyone was just talking about how to deal with Kobe and all that stuff. But just those two sharing the court at the same time, seeing that backstage footage and having, like a Tribe Called Quest bumping Can I Kick It? It's just something else, dude. Like there's such a feeling that is almost indescribable when it comes to seeing that point. And to your next question, is Michael Jordan the greatest of all time? It depends on what context. When it comes to basketball, I think he is overall, like the impact he's had on the game, his brand, and how his brand is arguably the biggest brand basketball offshoot of all time. I think that makes him the greatest, but I can see LeBron, if LeBron keeps doing what he's doing, he could potentially come close. But yeah,
I like it.
thank you.
My favorite moment from The Last Dance was, everyone loves a good story, and that moment for me was when Michael Jordan, I forgot what season was this, but I think it was very early on in his career where he hit the buzzer beater against the Cleveland Cavaliers. That to me is where the legend of Michael Jordan starts, and like it was that moment where his moniker of the GOAT was truly born. And on other parts of The Last Dance I really, really enjoyed, and this is also up there with that, is like the whole drama between Michael Jordan and Jerry Reinsdorf and the Bulls ownership. It was kind of just interesting how much tension there was between Michael Jordan and the owners, because that documentary made the Chicago Bulls ownership look completely fucking terrible. And it is like, but then again, like you're still left with it. You're just still left unsure about it because you don't know, because The Last Dance was completely from Michael Jordan's perspective. So that question will not be fully answered. But as far as is Michael Jordan the GOAT, like what Jarrod said, because of his impact, because remember, going into the 90s, yes, basketball did have a big presence in pockets of the globe, but I would not consider it. I would not consider it to be global until Michael Jordan fully came on the scene. Bird, as the saying goes, Bird and Magic, they saved the NBA. Jordan globalized it, and that's because of that impact alone. And his impact has, created literally a whole subset culture of sneaker addicts. So, be, the impact and his the fact that he three-peated not just once but twice should be acknowledged. I I will however say this. I think by the time LeBron's career is done, the conversation is going to get a whole lot more complicated because LeBron will have his contributions off the floor as well. Wow. So yeah, I think Michael Jordan is the greatest of all time, but in a couple years' time, that question could be much more confusing.
I try to take a lot of the points that you guys are saying because you guys are making excellent points here. I'm gonna take a macro lens on my favorite memory from the Last Dance. I don't have a specific one, but I think it's the overall impact it had during the time. It's kind of like your story with Space Jam, Skyler. Like there was so much that went into it that makes it such a great movie for you. And I feel like the Last Dance, the timing, the memes might have to be one of my favorite because I still use them. Michael Jordan looking at the screen like Isaiah Thomas beef. There was and then touching up on what Daniel said, the story, there was so much beef going on. There was people, Isaiah Thomas tweeting about it, Joe Dumars, like all types of stuff going on outside of the Last Dance. I think we talk about community a lot. And I think the Last Dance brought so much of a community on social media. We were talking about it every week. I was making, I have these LED lights in my room. I would have the red light setting on because, the Bulls, and I'll turn it on, like sit down, give me popcorn. Like it was an event. So that whole aspect of it, like I hope that we get some more documentaries like that, praying for a Kobe one, because that was amazing. So overall, everything, even what Jarrod said, the songs were on point. The soundtrack was on point. It was a cultural thing. The Last Dance is a culture. Like, Michael Jordan is a culture in himself. But to answer the question, I'm going to have to say yes. Michael Jordan is the greatest of all time, not only because of, you guys keep saying, the impact outside of basketball and globalizing it, but his impact within basketball. That's what's making him the greatest of all time. Excuse me for a second. That's what's making him the greatest of all time. This guy, Michael Jordan, once he shaved his hair off, he became this icon on the hardwood. You know what I'm saying? Not only on the offensive end, but the defensive end. We talk about two-way players. Michael Jordan is the ultimate two-way player. Defensive player of the year, all defensive team, but could also drop 30 on your point, on 30 points on your head. He was consistent. Michael Jordan is probably one of the most consistent players. Think about it, bro. Average, he's tied with Wilt Chamberlain, 30.1 points for career average in points, but never scored over 69. Nice. 69 points. You know what I'm saying? He never scored 100. He never scored 70. We look at Wilt Chamberlain. Wilt Chamberlain averaged 50 points one season. So for Michael Jordan to tie Wilt Chamberlain, or correct me if I'm wrong, he is leading as an all-time scorer
by fractions.
You feel what I'm saying? And he didn't average. I mean, he was putting up numbers, bro. 37 points a game one season, 35 one season. But not only is he the focal point of your offense, but he's out there guarding the best player. And that's why I have to say he's the greatest, because it wasn't just offense. We see great offensive players. Shout out to Steph Curry. Shout out to Kevin Durant. But how often is that number one offensive player the number one defender in the league? And I know Kawhi, but it's not the same. It's not the same. So I have to say Michael Jordan is the greatest of all time when it comes to on that hardwood. And I agree with you guys. His impact, and it's still lasting today, he's up there. But it's going to come a time where we're going to have to make a Mount Rushmore of GOATs, because there's so many amazing players in this league that does so many amazing things. Shout out to Kobe Bryant. Shout out to LeBron James. Shout out to Kevin Durant. Shout out to Steph Curry. And shout out to all these other players that I may be not mentioning. Russell Westbrook, I'm going to say him because KD failed to say that he was one of the best teammates that he had. Weirdo. Anyways, but to answer it, long answer short, Michael MJ, number 23, is the greatest of all time.
And really quickly, let me add something here. So I read somewhere that after the Last Dance premiered, ESPN had 500 plus hours worth of content locked up in a vault, and they only used what, 10 hours, right? Correct me if I'm wrong, because the each part of the Last Dance was an hour long, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So they have 490 plus hours of content sitting in a vault somewhere. Release the other footage, ESPN, you cowards. Knowing that, knowing the 500 hours is still there, I took that personally, dude.
Shout out to MJ.
Oh my
I was
God.
waiting for someone to get that.
Endless memes, endless memes. The laughing meme when he hears LeBron calling himself the greatest of all time, which might lead into a little bit of my take here. First of all, I absolutely love LBJ, LeBron James. Watched him since I was 10 years old, his entire career, straight out of high school. Watched him grow up, watched him go through this. We'll get into that in a sec. My favorite moment from The Last Dance, since it's obviously going to be the Kobe Bryant interview in The Last Dance, how close that was, hearing him, the big brother, and the fact that right months before that, we heard MJ speak about Kobe being his little brother. And the fact, like, the timing is just too crazy. That was what was amazing for me in certain respects, is that Kobe's memorial was like MJ's coming out party and standing in front of two Kobe's jerseys. And so for me, that moment was very full circle. My favorite moment in The Last Dance that did not involve the man, the myth, the legend, Kobe Bryant, was actually at the end of episode 6 when it was Michael and it was showing all of his teammates' victories and him saying, some people might think I'm a tyrant. Some people might think this, but I just wanted to win. And it's showing all the joy and success that he brought his teammates and the best moments of their lives. And he literally starts crying at the end, talking about, and you could feel that he was hurt what people thought of him. He was hurt that he had hurt others. But it was just that desire to win that was so unique to him, that was unhealthy, that was and that's what makes people like that so interesting. And that's what made The Last Dance so compelling. And Michael Jordan's such a compelling individual outside of sport. But that moment still gives me chills. The music, the teammates running, the successes, and just knowing how much it meant to him. And with the tears, you've almost never seen anything mean that much to anyone. I mean, and that's what made Michael Jordan, Michael Jordan. And the thing about Michael Jordan being, in my opinion, the greatest of all time is that he did three-peat twice. He did retire from the game of basketball. He did not leave the Chicago Bulls, until he went to the Wizards, but we all like to sort of, let's just say they didn't include the Wizards in The Last Dance. It doesn't factor into the championship greatest of all time era. It's sort of like Kobe's post Achilles years. The fact that he was playing was remarkable, and then that 60-point game just added to it. But with Jordan, it's sort of everything before that. And to me, to go undefeated in the finals and retire from the game and come back and have to work your body back into shape as we saw Tim. There's no statistic for that. There's no statistic for the fact that the only other true offensive weapon Jordan had was Scottie Pippen, and he had to operate in that way. It wasn't multiple offensive juggernauts like that. And so for me to have no losses in the final, look, I think LeBron might end up winning 6 titles because I've called a three-peat on this show. I think that he very well could end up as the all-time leading scorer. But regardless, the spacing on the floor with multiple Hall of Famers and all of that within the game of basketball, he will always be on, as G said, the Mount Rushmore of GOATs. But it's going to be difficult for him to eclipse the near perfection of Michael Jordan's basketball career and what he did once he shaved that head of his, and even the stuff before. So it's pretty incredible. On my end, I really appreciate the opportunity to host today, to get to interview you guys. This was great. Everybody tune into the pod, keep tuning in. And anyways, man, that I would say that ends my tenure as host here for today. So Jarrod, I'm gonna let you start off the closing outros here.
Yeah. And, subscribe. G mentioned it a few times. But yeah, don't forget to subscribe to the Shooting Bricks podcast and leave a review on your platform of choice. It really helps us out. Some people have already done so, and they've been showing me pictures of their subscription, their review. Fantastic work, you guys. I love you guys to death. Appreciate everything you guys do. Whatever you guys do, it helps us out immensely. So please keep doing what you're doing. Like I said, I can't say this enough. It really helps us out. And lastly, make sure to follow us on @podcastbricks on Twitter, @Shooting Bricks Podcast on Instagram, and surprise, @The Shooting Bricks Podcast on YouTube, because this is going up on YouTube. So by the time you guys are listening to this, this is already up on YouTube. So look up The Shooting Bricks Podcast on YouTube, or look at one of our socials. We'll probably have something there. Look at our link tree. And yeah, you can follow all three of those platforms for all the news and the video of this episode and future episodes of the Shooting Bricks podcast. And as always, I'm Jarrod Castillo.
George Floyd, your contributions will never be forgotten. Even though justice was served, the fight is far from over. Black Lives Matter. This is Daniel. This is Daniel on the mic here. Skyler, thank you for hosting and joining me as well.
And big shout out to all of those that participated in our sweepstakes to be a special guest on the best podcast out there, the Shooting Bricks podcast. Can I get a drum roll, please? Yeah! Big shout out to Young Duck.
Let's go, baby. Big shout out to Young Duck. Congrats on winning.
If you didn't know, now you know, Young Duck, you're going to be a special guest on the Shooting Bricks podcast. Of course, go ahead and put this in your story so you guys get a shout out. Listen to us, shout us out so we can shout you guys out on the podcast. Of course, it's your boy, Gerrel said.
Yo, what up? This is Skyler. Lots of fun getting to host today and interview everyone about the podcast. And yeah, keep tuning in, subscribe. And as George Floyd's daughter said, Daddy changed the world. And truly, that just really opened up a lot of people who needed to be opened up. I'm lucky to have been listening and paying attention for a long time. But as we always, Black Lives Matter, and stop Asian hate. And let's all just show each other as much love as we can in this crazy world. And shout out to The Last Dance for just being an epic time. I can't believe it was a year ago. And shout out to this episode in the Shooting Bricks podcast for reaching number 50.
Absolutely. Thanks again to everyone. Thanks to Skyler for hosting this episode. And with that being said, we will see all of you guys next week.